Hey, it's Russ from the Infectious Groove Podcast and Vinyl Channel. Coming up today, I've got another countdown-ish video for you. Going to cover 5 different records from later in artist's career that I think could use just a little more love. Coming right up. Thanks for stopping by and checking out yet another one of our countdown-ish type videos. This particular one, the albums aren't in any sort of order, but you'll get the idea here in a second. If you haven't done so already, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hopefully this is the video that earns your subscription. And please, whether you're subscribed or not, make sure to hit the like button if you enjoy the content. But more important than all of that, make sure to get involved in the comment section below. Would love to hear what you think of these albums or maybe some of your favorites from later in artist's career. So the idea behind this video is almost every single time you talk about certain artists or artists who make a really big splash with their debut record, they almost always get relegated to, oh, well, I like their old stuff. Or, yeah, they sure came out great and then really went downhill from there. And a lot of these artists that I'm going to have for you today are ones that I feel really get that. Like people always say, oh, man, you know, they killed it on their first record or they were great on the first and second record. And then people sort of write them off later. So there's not any sort of ranking to these because they're different artists, mostly from the rock genre. So all of these are just records that I think are fantastic that I just don't think get enough love in the career of that record. And the first one up, without a doubt for me, is the 5th album from Pearl Jam, Yield. For me personally, this is, I think, hands down the best album Pearl Jam ever made. Now, I love 10. I love Versus. I did a video on great sophomore records not long ago, and I said in that video that I think Versus might be one of the best sophomore records ever made. I stand by that statement, but a lot of folks like Vitalogy, some don't. No Code, the 4th album, is universally panned. I'm not a huge fan of it myself, but boy, oh boy, did they come back swinging with Yield. I think it's the most complete Pearl Jam album that there is. There's some things on it that are a little out there that were found on No Code and Vitalogy, but there's straight up rock songs. There's amazing ballads. There's a ballad of sorts on this record called Wish List that I would put up against Say Black, which is one of the most universally revered Pearl Jam songs that there is. And then the rockin' songs that are on here, Pilot, Brain of J, Brain of J being a fantastic album opener. Do the Evolution, it's just loaded. The 5th effort from Pearl Jam, Yield, I think is criminally underrated and a fantastic example of what we're going to show off in the video today. So that's why I wanted to start off with that one. Another one is like a mid-career record, and that is Aerosmith-Pump. Now, I'm not saying that this record didn't sell 1 million copies, and there's a bajillion singles on here. The Other Side, What It Takes, Janie's Got a Gun, Love in an Elevator. But I do think that this record completely falls by the wayside in Aerosmith's overall hierarchy of records. I think nowadays most people think of Aerosmith as the band that did Toys in the Attic and Get a Grip. I'm talking about casual Aerosmith fans, so everybody don't come at me about that. I personally love a whole lot more of what they've done than those 2 records, but I feel like there's some huge gems in their catalog, no pun intended, that get overlooked, and Pump is one of them. I think, again, I listed off the crazy amount of singles on here, but the album opener, Young Lust, Fine, F-I-N-E, Fine, the second track on this record, I think is one of the most underrated Aerosmith rockin' songs that there ever has been. The rest of everything on here, there's nothing really ballad heavy. Janie's Got a Gun, some people might consider ballad, and What It Takes for sure, but the rest of the songs, like My Girl, Don't Get Mad, Get Even, those are just straight up rockin' Aerosmith cuts that I don't think get any amount of love. And I think when people think of this record, they usually think of Love in an Elevator or What It Takes. Both great songs, but I think the rest of this album is severely underrated and really counts as something later in a career, even though it's released over 30 years ago now. It was much, much later in Aerosmith's career at the time, and I think it absolutely stands out as a great example of a later career album. The next one up, I think, is extremely overlooked, and unfortunately it ended up being the artist's last record, and that is Hypnotic Eye by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Now, at the time that this was released, there was no way of knowing that we would lose Tom so soon afterwards, and I don't want to say this was panned, but I really didn't hear a lot of buzz on it. And still to this day, it's like when an artist passes away and a lot of their older works get looked into, the same thing happens with a lot of artists where their biggest records get even more praise than they had before. So with Tom Petty, you have a lot of people really praising up and down things like Full Moon Fever and Wildflowers, of course. And the part of Tom's career past Wildflowers has always kind of been uneven with fans. Some fans absolutely love it and praise all things Tom does, but the majority of it, and certainly the general public, just are there's that's just kind of there. Those records are there, and I think this is one of them that is just insanely underrated. Really creative work. I would go so far as to, me personally, if you were to ask me ahead of time, hey, the work on here is gonna be your last album, are you okay with ending your career that way? I would be okay with it all day, every day. This is absolutely a fantastic bookend to Tom Petty's career, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' career. And the cuts on here, just right from the beginning, there's actually no checklist on the back, but songs like All You Can Carry, right from the start, just have this rockin' feel and reflective feel that I think was missing in a lot of the more uneven works at the end. So definitely Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Hypnotic Eye, the last effort, and a fantastic effort that I think is still overlooked today. This next one, I happen to have 2 copies of it, but it's just one LP. The second copy of it is the more recently released Sone reissue from, unfortunately, when Prince passed away. Exact same, really, as far as I can tell, all the way across the board to the original pressing, and that is 1999's Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic. And this record, among Prince fans who tend to really love a lot of Prince's collected works, even things that don't get a big praise in the public eye, that even a little bit more hardcore Prince fans tend to turn away from. A lot of Prince fans usually will defend everything that he's done, and for whatever reason, I find that this record gets unfairly insulted, I guess, for lack of a better word, within the fan base, and certainly within casuals. I can't think of any casual Prince fan who's probably even given this record the time of day. And there's a lot of reasons why. When it was released, there was Prince had been skipping from record label to record label trying to get the best distribution deal, and the word around the campfire is that Arista had spent so much money signing Prince to be able to release this record that they didn't have any money in the budget for videos or any sort of proper promotion, so the record just kind of came out with a whisper. And I think this is just a fantastic album that kicks off with the song Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic, which is an upbeat Prince dance number. If I've ever heard one, it's up there with a lot of the more funky tunes that he did, say 87 and before. But there are some special guests on this record that are just insane. Chuck D is on the album. Sheryl Crow is on the album on a rockin' song called Baby Knows. And it's interesting because on this record, Prince covers a Sheryl Crow song called Every Day is a Winding Road, but Sheryl Crow is not on that track. Prince does a cover of her song on his own, and Sheryl Crow is involved in another song on the record called Baby Knows, but not a cover of her own song. Gwen Stefani makes an awesome appearance on the record. I'm not even a huge fan of Gwen Stefani. She does a great job on a song on this album called So Far So Pleased. The record, as it nears the end, it's not the last track, but as it nears the end, there's a beautiful ballad called I Love You But I Don't Trust You Anymore, which I rank up there with some of my all-time favorite Prince ballads. One of my all-time favorite Prince ballads is Sometimes It Snows in April, and I believe I Love You But I Don't Trust You Anymore is in that discussion. Rounding things out, I'm actually going to do a twofer from the same band. So 5 artists, I guess, and 6 albums, and there's a reason for it. The last artist that I'm going to feature is Bon Jovi. Now, the first album I'm going to talk about is a later career album called Bounce. This is the album right after their career resurgence happened with Crush, so It's My Life and so on. And the biggest detractor from this record, there's 2 things that I could say are detractors from this record. Number 1, if you're not a Bon Jovi fan already, there's nothing here for you. You're not going to pick up this record and say, oh, I've seen the light. This is Bon Jovi doing Bon Jovi things. So this is not anything that you're going to look at and say, oh, I get it now. It's very, very, very in the vein of Bon Jovi doing what Bon Jovi does. The other detractor from this record is it was kicked off with a single called Every Day, which was almost the single off of the album before it, Crush. The single It's My Life, it's almost the exact same song again. So I believe that was a big deterrent. I feel like a lot of listeners and certainly the general public were like, okay, we just did this on the last album, so maybe it didn't get a lot of radio play and wasn't in the public's mind. But there are some fantastic Bon Jovi songs on here that I think wipe the floor with a lot of the songs that are on Crush. The opener, Undivided, Misunderstood, the Distance, All About Loving You, Hook Me Up, Love Me Back to Life, great ballad called You Had Me From Hello, the title cut itself, Bounce. Really just a fantastic album that if you like Crush, if you already are a Bon Jovi fan and you haven't given this record much of a look, please do. I think it's a fantastic later career effort. The other reason why I have 2 Bon Jovi albums on here, and again, this is something where I have 2 different pressings, an original pressing that had a bonus track on it, and then the reissue that just came out a couple of years ago, missing the bonus tracks, but the tracks are spread out on the album a little bit more. This is a couple of albums before Bounce. This is Bon Jovi-These Days. And the reason why I bring this one up is because I firmly believe that this could make a Bon Jovi fan out of you if you're not a Bon Jovi fan. Really gritty, soulful songs, some of the best blues guitar playing Richie Sambora ever did. A lot more real life type lyrics from John instead of a lot of the same forlorn love type things. Some of that is on here and some of it's done very well, but a lot of the album is a little bit more serious step than Bon Jovi had been used to, certainly at that time in the mid-90s. So that one, I think these days, if you're a Bon Jovi fan, you probably already sing the praises of this album. But where this differs from Bounce, in my opinion, is that if you've never got Bon Jovi, if you just say, I just do not understand what the deal is with that band, I think there might be some overlooked stuff on this record that you could look into. Lie to Me, Hey God, My Guitar Lies Bleeding in My Arms, the list goes on. It's a fantastic record. So even if you're not a Bon Jovi fan, I think this might be one you want to look into. So that was 5 artists, 5 albums, and a bonus album of cuts that I think are fantastic that just don't get enough love, in my opinion, and they all happen to come later in the artist's career. I know that if you're watching this video, you absolutely have some of your own that you feel that way about, or maybe you agree with these, or maybe you disagree with these. Either way, please make sure to light up the comment section below. Love to have the interaction and hear what people think about these topics that we're discussing. If you haven't already, if you would please hit the subscribe button, helps the channel out some. Maybe share the video around as well. Most importantly, want to hear from you in the comment section. And above all, thanks so much for watching.